But first, a Massachusetts judge and court officer who helped an illegal immigrant criminal escape the custody of ICE have actually been indicted for obstruction of justice and several other criminal charges. Trace Gallagher joins us with more. Hi, Trace.
Hi, Tammy. Jose Medina Perez is an illegal immigrant who's been deported twice, is wanted on drunk driving warrants, and was appearing in a Massachusetts courtroom before Judge Shelley Richmond Joseph on drug charges. If Medina Perez made bail, there was an ICE agent in the courthouse hallway waiting to rearrest him. Now, here's the conversation picked up on courtroom audio between Judge Joseph and the defense attorney for Medina Perez. Now, they speak softly, so listen close. Watch.
Larry, can you go off the record for a moment?
Yeah, so it's unclear what was said when they turned off the audio recorder, but the defense lawyer later told the judge Medina Perez needed to get his property downstairs, which the judge allowed. That's when prosecutors say the court officer, Wesley McGregor, who's also charged, used his access card to slip Medina Perez out the back door. The lead federal investigator said, quoting, "The people of this country deserve nothing less than to know that their appointed and elected representatives are working on their behalf while adhering to and enforcing the rule of law, not a personal agenda." Today, the judge and court officer were indicted by a grand jury and pled not guilty to obstruction of justice. As she left the courthouse, Judge Joseph lost her composure and began to cry, and her attorney says the case is purely political. Tammy.
All right, Trace, thank you. Boy, what a scene there. Thanks for that report. Now, Howie Carr is a Boston area radio host. Hi, Howie. He joins us now. How are you doing?
Very good, Tammy.
Good. Boy, what a remarkable event. We know that President Trump was elected in part because Americans were tired of not having the rule of law and seeing it in place and applied uniformly to all people. And now suddenly we have an example of where it just might have been. Give us some background. That's your state. It's pretty thrilling, isn't it?
Right. Well, it is. I mean, I talked to the director of ICE today, the acting director, and he said, as far as he knows, this is the first time this has happened. There are these sanctuary jurisdictions all across the country, but no judge, no politician, no sheriff or police commissioner has ever been indicted for letting these illegal aliens go. And in Massachusetts, as in most other areas of the country, this has gotten to be a terrible problem. In this same courthouse, which is just outside of Boston, Newton District Court, last year you had another judge had an illegal Dominican gangbanger in front of her who was accused of raping a BC college co-ed while she was drunk, and the prosecutors had asked for a high bail so that ICE could grab this guy and get him deported, or at least get him locked up while he faced charges. The judge cut the bail to $2,500, and he escaped out the back door. They had a case south of Boston in Quincy, another rape case involving an Uber Lyft type driver, and he was let go at the courthouse.
You know,
and he
Howie,
escaped
I've got to say,
Africa.
though, this is unusual in that, and I think the lack of law and the lack of cooperating with federal law enforcement kind of invites this. As with that audio that we heard, there's like collusion. There was like an effort made to help facilitate the escape. It wasn't even just using the law as a state might have passed it, and we can debate whether that would be constitutional or legal, but this was an actual effort to facilitate the escape by this judge and that clerk. We were extraordinary.
Well, this judge, she violated all kinds of laws. You know, the courtrooms are open, and she wouldn't even let this guy, who's not just a U.S. citizen, but he's an officer of the law, a sworn officer, an ICE agent. She wouldn't even let him in the courtroom. And then there are all these rules of the Massachusetts trial court that you don't turn off the tape recorder just for the very reason that they did turn off the tape recorder.
If you're willing to do what they did, allegedly, and again, there's been an indictment, then I don't think the other smaller issues bother you either. But this seems to be, I think, a mentality that, especially on the left, and even within law enforcement, as we've seen, of course, even at the highest federal levels, that maybe the rules don't apply to them. And the nation, I think, has sent a message very strongly that we want law and order and the rule of law to apply to everyone. A great job out there also with all of your work. Howie, thanks for joining me tonight. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Tammy.
Yeah. Not a story that we all want to hear, but it was good to see how it's turning out. Now, the U.S.-Mexico border has become a huge mess, with literally thousands of people crossing over every day. Now, New York Times columnist Thomas Friedman says he's seen enough. In a recent column, Friedman shocked many on the left by coming out in favor of a border wall. He said so on CNN.
When you say, though, you want a high wall with a big gate,
yes,
a smart gate, but a high wall, that's going to sound to a lot of folks out there, that's what Donald Trump wants.
Well, I think you got to control the border. When you have an increase of illegal apprehensions of illegal entries of 374% since October, obviously you've got a situation where the border security is not sufficient. I'm for a high wall with a big gate, a compassionate, a smart gate, so we can keep immigration going.
All righty. Well, Jonathan Harris is a Democratic strategist. He joins us now. Jonathan, welcome aboard, sir.
Hi, how are you? Good to be with you.
Good. I know it's like all of us are seeing pigs fly by the window, right? No matter which side you're on here. What's your take on this? I know that you don't agree with Mr. Friedman. Exactly why?
Right. Well, the thing is, I think we've heard the numbers now. We've heard that a border wall would only curb about a third of illegal immigration because that's not where it comes from. It actually doesn't come predominantly from the southern border. It's people coming in through legal ports of entry and things like that. It would only cut about a third of illegal immigration. I think a lot of people disagree with it on the front of, number one, it's just not cost effective to spend that much money to cut a third of illegal immigration. And then also just the way that Trump promoted the wall, which was essentially calling Mexicans rapists and criminals and so on and so forth. Whether you agree with the wall or not, if you isolate just that, those remarks leave a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths. And it just, I think a lot of people who maybe even would have supported, some of a wall or extended fencing, when you hear what he says about Muslims and Mexicans, you just don't want to even be associated with it at all.
Well, here's our issue, though. A lot of people don't like what the president says or even how he says it. Right. And then there's the facts of the matter and the reality.
Right.
So even taking your numbers, which we can debate whether that's the case or not. In March alone, 100,000 illegal immigrants were apprehended. So, having 30,000 of those individuals stopped, why not do that? But isn't the nation's national security, doesn't that matter, especially with Al-Qaeda still out there, especially with other terrorist groups, with what happened in Sri Lanka? Don't we have this is not a zero-sum game. It's not just the wall. It is a comprehensive framework of border security, with the wall being part of that, especially when it comes to fentanyl and the drugs coming over. What would make you happy? Just no wall, or what would be the solution?
Well, again, the issue for me, I think, and again for a lot of people on the left, lawmakers, voters, is cutting a third of illegal immigration and then asking the taxpayer to foot the bill for billions of dollars when you said to your supporters, to America, that Mexico was paying for this repeatedly. You promoted the wall by calling Mexicans rapists and criminals. We can argue
with whether or not the president approached it properly or not. I think he did. Americans aren't doing this and saying any more than you wouldn't go to the doctor if you think there's only a 30% chance of a certain medicine working for you. Just think don't take it. But there's got to be a point where we come together, as Friedman has at least went down to the border, saw what was going on, and said, yes, we've got to take control of this.
I'm agreeing with what you're saying sort of in principle. I'm just saying that it doesn't, the way he sold it was vile, and the facts don't support the need for it.
John, thank you. I appreciate that. And that's, very 2016 of you. Thank you. I'll see you next time. 2 years